you are currently writing up your research methods chapter of your research project or your dissertation or your thesis, you might have come across the terms positivism and interpretivism. What are they? What does it mean? Why do I need to know this? I've got it all covered in today's video. If you're new here, my name is Dr. Drhayleystainton, and I've marked an awful lot of research projects and dissertations in my time, done quite a few of my own too. So I'm giving you my top tips and tricks in this video. Positivism and interpretivism are words that many students will be too familiar with, yet it's not always easy to get your head around exactly what these words mean. So these terms will form part of your research philosophy. But what is that? The first thing you need to do when you are doing a research project is to determine your research philosophy. This basically means that you need to define your worldviews and perspectives in terms of your research. Now that might sound really daunting. You might think, I have no worldviews that affect my research. What do you mean? Don't worry. It's basically a pathway that you need to follow. It's like map reading. So I recommend that you start at the back, at the end, and decide how are you going to collect your data. So if you're doing surveys or interviews, that will be your data collection method, and you then have a look, is it qualitative, is it quantitative, and what are the underlying philosophical approaches that follow on from that. And you will find all of that very clearly in the research methods text. And I have listed some super helpful ones down for you in the description, so highly recommend having a look at some of those. It will definitely help you to understand and help you to enhance your grades. But anyway, I'm going to do my best to explain it to you now in this video. So your research philosophy is essentially a set of beliefs or metaphysics that represent the researcher's worldview, or your worldview. The nature of the world, the individual's place in it, and the range of possible relationships to that world. Now this tends to either be scientific, which is often associated with quantitative data collection, or society-based, which, not always, but can often be associated with qualitative research. And if we follow that pathway that I mentioned before, you will realise that quantitative research takes a positivist approach and qualitative takes an interpretivist approach. So let's delve a bit deeper then and have a look at what does positivism and interpretivism actually mean. Positivism and interpretivism are essentially epistemological positions adopted by the researcher. You will choose your epistemological position based on what best fits with your research aims and objectives. Positivism aligns itself with the methods of the natural sciences. It is associated with deductive logical reasoning, which means it starts with initial theories or hypotheses and it works towards more specific details. It tends to be very black and white. It either is or it isn't. And it can generally be proved, or it can't. It does not lend itself particularly well to areas that are not so black and white in nature, such as the study of society, for example. Positivism uses only research data that is verifiable and is collected in a value-free manner, enabling objective results to be generated and general scientific laws to be created. It often uses numbers. A number is a number. It's not subjective in any way. Calculations and equations can easily be developed. You can also think of it in terms of a scientific experiment. Take fire, for example. We need the three elements of oxygen, heat and fuel in order for fire to occur. If one element is missing, there is no fire. It's not up for discussion. It's a black and white fact. Interpretivism lends itself well to studies that do have a lot of those grey areas, like society. Understanding why or how somebody feels or behaves cannot be achieved through the analysis of numbers. Instead, it requires an in-depth assessment of words, actions, and behaviours. An interpretivist researcher concentrates on the meanings that people bring to situations and behaviour and the ways that they use this to interpret the world. What's more is that an interpretivist researcher believes that reality and the individual who observes it are indeed inseparable. This is because a person's view of the world are inextricably linked to their life experiences. So An example that I like to give is when I went to teach English as a foreign language in Thailand. I had been trained in the UK, so naturally I am going to use my experiences and my knowledge from the UK and apply it to that situation in Thailand. Because even if I tried to start again, I've got that in my mind, I've had that training, I've had that experience, and it's always going to impact how I teach in Thailand or in any other country. Hopefully that makes some sense. So which one is better, positivism or interpretivism? There are actually benefits and limitations to both types of research. A positivist study enables control and precision and returns verifiable data that is very black and white in nature, whereas interpretivist studies are unable to produce generalized laws in the way that positivist research can, since the data cannot be guaranteed as objective and true, because it's often grey and subjective. However, a positivist approach is limited in that the data that it produces can be pretty inflexible, and it fails to address aspects such as personal beliefs, experiences, and motivations. Interpretivist studies aim to understand things, as opposed to providing the rigid explanations that a positivist study would do. Despite their ability to provide in-depth and valuable results, however, interpretivist studies can be criticised for the researcher's subjectivity that will inevitably entail throughout the data collection and analysis. In other words, what I think, you might not think. Not everything is black and white, and a lot of things do involve a degree of interpretation. For example, I might see somebody and think they look very upset today, and you might see them and think they look fine. Different people have different interpretations, I suppose. So what you will need to do when you do write your research methods chapter, and I have a video all about that from start to finish, is outline whether you will be using interpretivism or positivism, and you do need the academic reference in there to support that too. So as I say, I have put a reading list down below. That should be super helpful for you. Do take a look at some of those. And I've got lots more videos that I know will be really helpful if you are in the process of writing your research project or your dissertation.